Call the meeting to order of the Kerrville EIC, and Gary has graciously agreed to lead us in invocation.
Please bow with me in prayer. Father God, we come before you with a little bit heavy hearts today. We ask that your special blessings be on the Fine family. The loss of Tyler, just wrap them in your arms and hold them close and let them know that they're in our prayers. We also ask that you be with us today and grant us wisdom and discernment and compassion as we work together in our best interest to serve you and the city of Kerrville. We ask these things in your name, Father. Amen.
Thank you, Gary. Keisha, do we have anybody signed up to speak?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from the December 12th meeting?
So moved.
All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, those minutes are approved. All right, Mr. Salinas, you got a report for us? Welcome back. I think you were otherwise engaged in December.
Yeah, I had a little emergency. One of my kids, who's an adult now, had appendicitis, so had to rush out and see him. Yeah, he's in Florida, and
You okay?
we have no family in Florida, so booked it out there as quick and got there as fast as we could, and he's doing fine now. So,
Good.
yeah, I didn't think appendicitis was such a big deal until it happens. I'm like, all right, that's not good. Okay, so. Mr. Chair, members of the board, last month the KDC conducted some visits to the Capitol in Austin. We met with Mr. James Taylor. He's the one that's heading up the governor's Latin American office. That's in Monterrey now. That particular office, their goals are to build relationships with communities that are looking at foreign direct investment opportunities, especially mid-sized cities. The larger metros, the Houstons, Dallas, San Antonios, they already have an office down there. So this is specifically catered for mid-sized cities and communities our size as well. As a result, we came back with a very solid lead. We talked about how there's, for the last year, there's been a lot of movement as far as Mexican nationals looking to diversify their portfolios. A lot has to do with the current administration that they have there. And obviously, Texas is always, a place that they look at. And then San Antonio is very attractive to many investors. So that puts us in a very strategic position. And it's interesting because this lead came from a person, they knew a person at the Business Innovation Forum. So if you start connecting the dots, it's kind of interesting how we develop those leads. Katie and myself, we're going to be back in Austin separately this month. She'll be meeting with Texas Workforce Commission, digging into some of the programs there, and then also looking at child care funding opportunities for the program that she's launched here. And then just, looking at opportunities for some of the local expansions. Myself, I'm meeting with the Economic Development Division. We have quite a few projects in the pipeline, so trying to get out there, present the projects to them, and try to kind of plant the seed as far as some of the state incentives that we can start bringing in to the area to help us lure those projects to Kerrville. We also have a visit with Shannon Mendoza. She's the head of VP of Economic Development for Alamo College's headquarters in San Antonio. So she's coming in to meet with Killdeer. There's a pending program with them. And then also with a couple other local companies that are looking at expansions. And then we hosted a prospect last week that is looking at, that might have to require like an avionics training program, which actually Alamo Colleges has. It's a one-of-a-kind program. The only one in the state of Texas, and so trying to, start the process of perhaps, adding that to Kerrville as far as Alamo Colleges is concerned. With that particular prospect is for the airport. We took that prospect over last week to the airport, met with Mary, toured the airport grounds, look at some of the sites that they have available. Very exciting project, some very good possibilities, some very nice synergies that can be played with this particular project and with what's happening, one at the airport, but also with Schreiner University, the school district, especially as it pertains to the pipeline of pilots. So still very preliminary, but hopefully in the next couple of meetings we can start really disclosing what this project is about. Then the International Economic Development Council, their leadership summit is in Tucson, Arizona at the end of the month. We've been invited to be one of the speakers specifically on developing communities that are looking to develop an aerospace and space sector from scratch. So we'll be coming in and speaking in that regard, and that's a national conference. And with that, I will turn it over to Katie, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. It was another very fun month in economic development. A few things that I was responsible for. I attended 3 child care working group meetings. One was with our internal working group, one was partnered with Alamo Workforce, and the third was with the center directors. Through these meetings, I was able to gather a lot of helpful information from the community and the directors on their needs and stressors, and also from the visit to Austin from the state to better understand what the tools and resources they have available to address our community challenges. I'm looking forward to taking this information to my working group next Thursday, January 12th, and presenting the information so that we can begin to construct some creative solutions to move forward. This past month, I made 2 trips to Austin to network with our leadership in preparation for the goals that we're aiming to achieve in 2023. That included a visit with the Texas Workforce Commissioner, Aaron Demerson, and I am pleased to report that he has accepted our invitation to visit Kerrville in Q1 of 2023, and I have more details forthcoming about that event. I was able to attend the Peterson groundbreaking for their new surgery center and enjoyed learning more about the hospital's history, and their goals for the future. I was assigned a TDEC, Texas Economic Development Center. They have a mentorship program, and they assigned me a certified economic developer, Karen Dixon, out of Austin to work with me on a mentor-type program. And in our first session, she assigned me a homework assignment that included an article that she wrote for a BRE education training program. And it's something that Gil and I have discussed, and we think it would be a good idea to implement it here in this community. And so we're starting to lay the groundwork for moving that project forward.
What is a BRE?
BRE stands for Business Retention and Expansion. Gave a presentation to the Chamber of Commerce networking group explaining what our KEDC does and what EDOs, economic development organizations, do in general, which was a really good comprehension check for me to make sure I was paying attention over the last couple months. I'm pleased to say that the presentation was well received and we have been invited back. While I was in Austin, I was speaking with the Office of the Governor about the work that we're doing in childcare, and one of the gentlemen at the Office of the Governor, Brian Roller, requested to participate in our childcare working group. So he is going to be serving on our childcare working group for the remainder of the sessions beginning next Thursday, January 12th. And I think that will be a really great opportunity for our community to really keep that feedback loop between us and the state very tight.
Is the governor's office a potential source of funding for what y'all are wanting to do?
At this point, it seems like our funding is probably going to come from other places, but from the little that I've learned in economic development so far, I think that it's going to be very helpful if we have their support, because they're going to be able to help get us introduced to the people who know the answers to our questions and how to complete the applications even faster. But Gil can probably answer that question better than me, but that's what my intuition tells me. We showed a commercial property to prospects of Project River Branch. We are waiting for feedback from their team on whether it will suit their needs. We tentatively have a second showing scheduled for them on Wednesday of this week. We received a presentation at our offices on an upcoming project on the river. And I particularly enjoyed the work-based education strategies that they are aiming to develop, which include opportunities to partner with area schools and fill our workforce pipeline with quality candidates. And as Gil mentioned, last week we brought a very exciting prospect out to the Kerrville Airport that I think could be a good fit for our community. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
I'd like to comment. I just, we had a meeting today of the KEDC, and I just would like to share with the council. I'm very, very impressed with the work they're doing. I think particularly for a community of this size, they've got a remarkably robust, well-thought-out program, and I'm just very impressed with it. And I particularly like what Gil is doing in reaching out to try to develop some ties for trade and investment with Mexico. I think that's a wise thing to be doing.
Yeah, thank you, guys. All right, you have the project status update in your packets. Does anybody have any questions or want any further information from Mr. Hornis on those projects? Do you have anything to add?
Dirt's turning at the airport, so that's really good news we got for that. All trades are working right now. Killdeer Mountain Manufacturing, plumbing, and MEPs are all out there. So they're looking like they're on a good schedule. And spring opening for Louise Hayes Park Fitness Court, I think, is kind of what we're shooting for. Just signed a contract for the concrete for that. And I got notification back from Mike Whitler at K-Pub that they've finalized their design and they're putting their bid packet together, and they should expect to get a PO in February for the K-Pub portion of that downtown streetscape. That's all I got.
When is Killdeer projected to open their new facility?
Fall. I think September is a date that I heard, give or take, depending on, what happens with the trades. But I would say fall of this year.
Okay, great. Any questions? Okay, thank you. All right, item 5C on the agenda is our monthly financial report.
Happy New Year, Mr. Chairman and board members. All right, we're looking at December financials. Nope, it's not moving. Okay, your statement of activities here. So for your revenues, we had December sales tax come in at $376,000. That is October sales, and that is a 13% increase compared to December of '21. We had the larger contributor categories like retail, food service, wholesale. Those all had double-digit increases for the month. Just still same grocery store prices are still up. We did have one of our new restaurants come online in October, so we have seen some of those sales also. So that makes sales tax collected to date $1.229 million, and based on budget, we estimate you to be at $1.196, so we're $33,000 better than estimate. Your next revenue is your interest income. In November, earned $23,000 for the month and $15,000 in your pool, and then $7,900 on your short-term investments. So interest revenue for the year so far is $58,000. And right down on to your expenditures, we had City of Kerrville Administrative Services, your monthly debt transfer, and then we had the $100,000 contribution to the outdoor fitness court project. So total expenses of $207,000 for the month, and that gives us a surplus for December of $193,000. Okay. On your cash flow, down on the bottom column is your cash balance of $4.397 million, and pretty much just we've updated the cash flow for the remainder of the year, and we just want to note we did add on the Downtown River Trail project. That has a timeline of about 2 years, and then we just updated your cash balances there at the bottom on the bottom row. And then just your last slide here is your financial analysis with your top chart being your cash and investments. Your tax pool average yield this month was 4.28%, and then your short-term investments, they average a 5% return, all three of those. Your middle chart are your sales tax comparisons, and then the bottom chart are your project committed balances. And that's all we have this month. Did it go off?
Do you have any questions? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, sir.
I'm going to come back to item 6. We'll move into our public hearing. This is public hearing to consider funding, the project funding agreement between the City of Kerrville, Texas, EIC, and the City of Kerrville, Texas for a concept feasibility study for an extension of the river trail around Nimitz Lake. Did anybody sign up to speak on that?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, let me open the public hearing at 4:15.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I don't have a whole lot of additional information to add to this. It was a discussion previous to consider an engineering study to go around Nimitz Lake, starting at the Dietert Center and making its way westward to Thompson Drive, and then the consideration across Thompson Drive, and then back down, coming back down under Francisco Lemos Bridge. We got a scope of work, preliminary study cost for Mr. Hewitt to go out there and do that, and the board agreed to host the public hearing for $182,500. And with that, I will turn it back over to y'all for any questions.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or thoughts they want to share?
And I didn't bring it in front of me, Mr. Hornis, but the scope of work was actually 198, is that correct?
182.8, sorry.
182.8.
182.8, I
The
apologize.
funding request is for how much?
It is for that amount.
182.
Yes, sir. Yeah, the first portion of it is 85.5, and that's from the condominiums to Thompson Bridge, and then 97.3 from Thompson Bridge back to the southwest to Francisco Lemos.
I'm just huge supporter of the river trail. I think there's some obstacles in that portion of the trail that nobody's been able to give me an answer of how they're going to be resolved. The first of those is how are we gonna get across the bridge?
On Thompson? The existing area lends itself to it. There's a sidewalk on there. There's, you know, that might be the easiest of them in terms of working with TxDOT on what they will allow. What I've seen typically with TxDOT is if you have a wide enough section of a street, they will allow you to build bike paths. Now, bike paths go one way, right? And the river trail is typically a wider section. So I think what you would see there is sidewalks on either side and bike trails into the street, depending on if it's wide enough. That's typically what I've seen from TxDOT. Widening that to a 10-foot path, that's a whole different story. I think Mr. Hewitt will bring back some interesting options for us as he gets to that area.
Then the second area of concern is at the water treatment plant.
Yeah, that is, we all have the same concern on what that would look like, what makes sense, what's cost effective, what's not. How does that route around along the road, or does that route along the river? I think there's any number of concerns from a staff standpoint on routing along the river, edging against there. So I think we need to kind of flesh that out a little bit more to kind of get some concrete answers. That's also probably one of the later parts of what's going to happen, I would think, simply because of the undeveloped properties next to it that go northwest between the landing and the water treatment plant. So what I would envision, and I think the original intent of when you guys all started, was continuation from where it stands now. The first phase would get to Knapp Boat Ramp, and then on down to Thompson, and then I would think from Thompson down to the landing, and then at that point, working back down that way. Just preliminarily, I assume that's kind of the most natural sequential set of phases. But yes, those are problem areas, or that is a challenging area.
Michael, does your office work with John Hewitt during that process, or do you just see the finished product?
No, we'll work with him during it. We've, in the past, and I'm a blank on Malcolm's last name. Matthews, Mr. Malcolm Matthews has worked on easement acquisition, which is kind of separate and apart from what Hewitt's gonna work on. I mean, he's working on that, but we'll work with them in alignment and what makes sense. You know, you think about getting to the areas where Snowflake is and the restaurant right there. You got some fairly steep slopes, and there's gonna be some limited opportunities on where it can go. It's kind of got this, you got this much space, it's 10 feet wide, so it's gonna go here, it's gonna go there. I think in some of the other areas where you have a little bit more wiggle room, there'll be some alignment with staff and trying to figure out, A, where we already have easements acquired through the plating process or through a donation from the owners themselves, to make sure that we're in line with what we've already got. No need to go back to the well. So yes, we will be working hand in hand with Mr. Hewitt.
Okay.
Were your ears burning?
All right, I think we'll need a motion to approve this. Is that right?
We're gonna close the public hearing? We didn't close it.
All right, no speakers. We'll close the public hearing at 4:21.
I make a motion that we approve the expenditure for the study on expanding the river trail onto Nimitz Lake.
Motion?
Second.
Second? All right, all those in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? The motion carries 421. Okay, last time we met, we asked Mr. Hornis to come back and bring us a list of city council 2022, 2023 priority list of policies and programs, as well as some economic improvement funding priorities. What I'd like do you have anything to hand out, or are you just gonna kind of talk us through those?
I think probably just talk it through. We emailed out the list of priorities you got from Ashley's office. And, you know, I can talk through, kind of go back over, we condensed down that presentation from last time, and just highlight what we know are the priorities from a staff standpoint, for the quality of life projects. The infrastructure projects are a little bit more, those come through development in a lot of cases, and they come through a priority from the Public Works Department. And so they're working through those priority lists. They're working through old bond funding. They're looking at revenue bonds. So that one is more developer-driven in terms of what's going to come to the EIC board from an infrastructure standpoint. So it's a little easier to put together lists of those quality of life projects, and probably have to come back to you more at the time of the ask from the developer and or from the city for those infrastructure needs. So if that makes sense. But just to go through kind of briefly.
Real quick, before we get into the details, I'd like to get some sense from the board as to what do we want to do with this information? Do we want to just hear it and take it under consideration? Do we want to feed back to city council or to staff how we want to prioritize things? What's the goal with this information?
Well, for me, I think it just be to kind of get it out on the table, what staff is, what the list is, and then seeing if there's one or two things on there that we as a board may want to go ahead and be proactive and say, let's do it, as opposed to waiting for staff or city council to come back to us. I mean, we talked about being proactive in development ideas, and that's just, this to me is just the first step in doing that.
Okay. Anybody else have any thoughts? Okay, go ahead.
So just to recap what we talked about before, I think that the three biggest quality of life priorities, they all fall into Ashley's department. Scotch Runner Golf Course, Singing Wind Park, and the Olympic Pool. Those are kind of the three big ones that came from the Parks Master Plan, and they all have different scopes. And obviously the River Trail, that's the other one, but y'all are already working towards that, and so we want to spend some time on these others. So the Olympic pool, as Ashley had discussed, and we don't need to go over the 2050 plans, all of these align with Kerrville 2050 and the Parks Master Plans. What's funny is that we're talking about the pool and projects that we could possibly go towards, and then we had kind of an emergency email that we had some cracks, and we need to get the people to come in and do a study. They're going to be here on the 19th to help us look at those things and evaluate those, and those are maintenance changes that we're going to have. But one thing I do know over the years of doing this is that pools are not inexpensive, and so there certainly are some big ticket items with the pool, things that they worked on, talking about. Important pieces for the community that I'd like to see is you know, the big slide at the pool, natatoriums is a possibility, lazy rivers, splash pads, all that kind of stuff. And there are a few different iterations of this, some of which are a little bit smaller in scale, as you see here. This, you know, $5.5-ish million, and this is a pretty updated number. You can see those cost escalations in there for 23, 24. So there are some short-term options for City Council to consider in terms of you know, do we want to work on this? But this is a project that is also looking for funding partners and community partners out there in the world. And so I haven't fleshed out all those conversations yet, which those conversations are looking at these options here, which are a little bit grander in scale and have big price tags. Now that $28.8 million is a 2019 number, so today that's probably 33, I would think, 32, 33. But it's a big dream, and so that is a longer conversation, and we're working on some of those conversations with our partners to see if they're interested in that. And I think as we finalize some of those conversations, we can come back and have a smaller, you know, a more pointed conversation about where we want to go with that. Singing Wind Park just got done with their master plan, so they have a ton of different projects that are going along right there and could be done. The master plans are always, I like these things. I want to do this when I retire. You can just kind of say, here's this nebulous area, we want to do this. Here's this area, we want to do this. You'll see that big yellow area is improvements to trails, making them ADA compliant, putting lighting in on those things, adding some parking to the west side that would be at a trailhead, upgrades to the playground areas, dirt bike pump tracks, and Ashley and her team have put together costs associated with all these things. And so, you know, from a priority standpoint, that's a big, long list for Singing Wind, and I think I would defer to the recommendations of the Parks and Rec Board, Ashley's team, and on what their considerations are for what is most important out there to them. But that's a pretty good list of items with a pretty good price tag into it. And then Scott Schreiner Golf Course, we have been actively working on solutions to what are 20-year-old greens at this point. 20 or 24? 20, yeah. So fairly old for those golfers out there, and those who are not, that's a pretty old set of greens. Upgrades to restrooms, repairing cart improvements. I will say that golf course is in pretty good condition, given the state of, you know, how old those things are. There's a couple of greens out there that do need some work, and they all need work, but there's a few that are kind of, you see it right when you get onto the green. You can see a big patch. But that's that one, and you can see them right there. Those two greens, those two middle pictures right there, that's pretty indicative of the challenges they're facing trying to make those things look nice. It's just hard once they start to go. But by and large, that course looks really good. And so staff was talking about looking at a 2024 renovation for that, because it's going to take 4 months for all that to happen. And there's so many tournaments that are kind of big in between those things. You really don't want, which are already set for this 2023 year. You don't want to really push any of those if a schedule didn't work out. So Heart of the Hills is coming up not too long from now. All the rest, I'm not gonna get them all right, but if we were to include this, and, you know, we talked about it at a staff level, including this into a 2024 project would be a really great thing for the golf course, and have it in budget discussions, have it in city council budget discussions. Finance is working through projections for the next kind of 15 years for EIC, and working in, like, if we did X, Y, and Z projects, what that would cost, how much we would be able to withstand and still maintain a healthy fund balance for you all. So, quite a few things, maintenance areas, the netting systems. So their total figure they had was about 1.2 or $1.3 million for that. So you have a defined cost in the golf course. You have some sliding scale costs in the pool and at Singing Wind. So I think there's some definite projects to be done at Singing Wind that you could say we can do this project as a standalone. I think the pool is a little harder to say at this point, let's go do this. So the golf course and Singing Wind seem like some pretty good ideas. But with that, I will turn it back over to y'all, because there's certainly other options out there, and other projects to consider as well. So we will take the direction.
Did I miss the cost estimates for Singing Winds?
They were pretty small. Really small.
Between 5 and 8 million.
Out of date, yeah. Could you go back to the slide about just the pool?
Yes, sir.
All the different, the one before that. Just on this list of things here,
Yes, sir.
number one, is there an order in which they would have to be done for efficiency or just operational reasons? And secondly, what one or two or three of those would give the most enhancement to our citizens if we did those?
On this one.
So this option here is upgrading it basically to a year-round competitive facility, while also addressing and bringing up to current code and current deficiencies that we have, replacing the pool deck, and also adding in the bulkheads, the heating in the pool, things of that nature, and adding a locker room too. Does that answer your question?
Well, maybe I didn't ask. I mean, so it's a package deal. You gotta do all of this. You can't like say, let's just do number one. You need to do the whole thing at one time. It's kind of an all or nothing.
It depends on what you're wanting to do. If you're wanting to make it this competition pool, then you would need to do all of these items. If you're looking to just address maintenance code, bring up to modern code, then we can scale that back to a smaller number, but that would just be addressing those issues, not doing any other enhancements. That would be extending the life of the pool.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't really thinking about the competition pool aspect. I'm more focused on what's gonna make it better for our folks who are gonna take their kids over there swimming in July and August. What things can we do the most improve them? I don't know I don't know where the competition idea came from, how many events and all that we think we could have there, and that's great if we can, believe me. But I'm thinking more just about today. If it's $2 million to go in there and add certain of these improvements that would make it better for our citizens, that's what I'm trying to get to, is just that piece of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, it depends on what you want to do. Like option B, for example, it includes the more rec and leisure aspect of it, including the natatorium too. Obviously, that's a very big price tag that can be scaled down and phased. But my recommendation, especially with the recent developments of the pool leaks that just popped up last week, my recommendation is for us to evaluate that, see where we are there, see what that's gonna take to, how big of an issue it is, what's the cost associated with addressing that, and going forward from there, and then evaluating and see.
It
What
seems like
options that we
most of
have.
these are gonna, except for maybe the competition lane and the seating, they all have to be done to the building, basically, and you've gotta do it all at the same time.
A lot of that would be, yes, sir.
That's why it's packaged
I
the
mean,
way
that's
it
it,
is.
yeah, that's just the way construction works. You don't wanna go in there and fix the air conditioning, then come back next year and tear that out to, put in the first aid station or to add the new bathrooms. So,
I think that, again, the challenge with this one is that the city is still having conversations with partners on possibilities, and so you kinda can't half-start option A, and then option B, whatever version of that would come into play, and now you have a deviation in that, and it doesn't fit. So I think what we would wanna do with the pool is probably be able to come back with, once we've had a few more conversations about this and we have a better path forward, before we would want the EIC to weigh on just I think the pool part. Because I see what you're saying, like if we just had, like, could we just upgrade the diving boards? Like, there's an amenity just for folks for right now, or upgrade some shade structures or something like that, that would be a direct now impact. I know what you're asking for, I get it.
But it seems to me that that's really the way, that's really what the Parks Advisory Board is set up to do, along with our other partners, is come back and prioritize it, and then come to us with that. Is that kind of the way the program would normally work?
So for the pool, I would ask if we could have a little bit of time, talk to the Parks Board, evaluate those immediate needs that we're gonna be dealing with. They're coming on the 19th and the 20th to come evaluate it, and see what comes of that, and bring back some stuff in February or March, I would think, for the pool.
Because, if our partners, potential partners are willing to come in at 1, 2, 2.5 million, I'm just making that up because we don't know what that is, but it's gonna be feasible then that we could look at doing more. We get a bigger bang for the dollar if we had those partners involved in it.
Well, I'm just glad to see that we are moving forward and talking about this. I just, at least in my mind, this to me is an important thing, and that we really ought to try to pursue this. I don't know about a natatorium and all the other stuff there, but that seems a little high. But as far as $5 million for this, I could see real benefit to, to our folks, and that's what I'm concerned about doing. And so I just would like to see us moving forward on this. Certainly, we've got money in EIC right now, and to do something to help. I don't know about 2 years from now, depending on what else happens around here. But I think this in my mind is a pretty high priority. I guess what I'm saying. I understand. I agree. Parks needs to be involved, and the staff and everybody needs to be involved because that's kind of more your area. But for this guy, I'd really like to see the city move on this and get something going there.
Actually, you made a comment a minute ago, and I may have misunderstood you, that you said doing these improvements would make it a year-round facility?
It would make it a year-round competition facility with the options for programming.
So it's
if
heated?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is it heated?
This improvement cost here would heat the pool. So we could offer year-round lap swimming, we could offer year-round swim lessons, we could offer programming. Again, those would come with operational costs too, staffing lifeguards, but this would be an outdoor, potentially year-round heated pool.
So, wow, heating that size pool year-round. Is there any other city in South Texas that does that?
So yeah, there's quite a few. I know Cedar Park has a year-round Olympic-size heated pool, not a 15-meter, but a 25-meter. It's quite the standard for an outdoor heated pool versus a natatorium in Texas.
Ooh. And I know it's not a cost per person basis. I know that's not how we judge these things. Do you, off the top of your head, and that's not fair to you, and I apologize in advance, how many people swam at the pool last summer?
It was roughly about, I want to say about 15,000. I'd have to pull the exact numbers, but
That's
between
fine.
12
I'm
to
just
15.
looking for a ballpark. That's a lot. That's all.
Anything else? Any other questions? Well, thanks for bringing this to us. Look forward to hearing what y'all come up with on the pool.
We'll bring it back and, we'll keep having this discussion.
Great.
Michael, do you have anything for us in executive session?
Not for today, no, sir, I do not.
Okay. All right, any final comments or items for future agendas? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, we are adjourned at 4:40.
Didn't even get a chance to embarrass